Hello everybody, I'm a stickler for precision, so it's now 6 seconds past 11:30. Sorry. Right, first of all, thank you very much for coming along today. Thank you very much for battling the lift system. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Neil, aka Kyoko Hunter, and as you might expect, I'm here to talk to you today about how to make a holiday to Japan a very otaku holiday. Before I get stuck in, I actually want to ask you guys a couple of questions, if that's all right. So first of all, hands up, how many of you have actually already been to Japan and are just reminiscing? There's a few of you there. How many of you are actively planning or intend to go to Japan in the kind of near future? It's a good number. Pleased to see that. And how many of you haven't raised your hands? You've got to raise your hands now. Oh, there's a few of you there. Right. So for those of you who have been to Japan, thank you very much for coming along. I want you to go again. I want you to explore new places. I've been 7 times now, and that might seem excessive, but it's just so addictive. And if I hadn't been 7 times, I wouldn't have met my wife-to-be out in Japan, I wouldn't have proposed her out in Japan, and we wouldn't have had our honeymoon in Japan. So that could be a side effect of going to Japan multiple times. For those of you who haven't been or are planning, it's such an amazingly indescribable experience that I really hope to inspire you through some of the stuff that I'm going to show you today, and help you get to Japan. And everybody else, I want to win you over. I want you to think, actually, yeah, I actually do want to go to Japan. I'm going to start planning. So I just want to say, please can you try and keep any questions to the end, just because I've put a lot of stuff in here, perhaps a little bit more than I needed to. So I'm just going to try and get through it. I'm going to have some time for questions at the end anyway. And you'll always be free to just come up and ask me questions if you see me out and about afterwards. So I'm going to be breaking this down into 4 categories. So we're going to do attractions, events, pilgrimages, and shopping. Sorry, we've had a little bit of tech issues, so I'm having to do a nod for my wife doing the slide pressings. So attractions are permanent exhibits, museums, those kind of things that are pretty much open all the year round, and you can just fit them quite easily into your holiday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through stuff in Tokyo first, because it's most likely that for your first trip out there, most of your time is going to be spent in and around Tokyo, just because there's tons of stuff to do, and it's convenient to get to and get around in. So first of all, let's start with something big. Let's start with the life-size Gundam. Bandai had commissioned this in 2009 to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Gundam, and it toured Japan for a little bit, but it's now permanently installed in Odaiba in Tokyo. As well as the actual Gundam itself, they do also have an attraction that you can go to with a 360-degree panoramic theatre, concept sketches, plastic models, and apparently there is also a life-size bust of the Strike Freedom Gundam from Gundam Seed. I'm not familiar with that, but it's there apparently. But if you wait a few years, Bandai are planning to make another one of these for the 40th anniversary in 2019 that actually moves. I don't know how much movement that will be, but it'd be impressive if they do that. So, continuing the Gundam theme, there's also a Gundam cafe in Akihabara with cosplaying staff, themed interior and stuff. I haven't been in here, but I hear the best thing about this place is the toilet. I haven't experienced it personally, and I'm not going to spoil the surprise for you. You can go out and find that for yourself. It's quite close to the station, so it's really easy to get to. And if you do get out there, there's also the AKB48 cafe right next door to it. But I didn't bother to include a picture of that. So next up is the Tokyo Anime Centre. It seems to be quite well advertised on the internet, but it really just tends to be kind of short exhibitions, kind of sketches, or things like that from anime series. So it's probably not one to have at the top of your list to go to, but worth checking out if they've got an exhibition of something or a series that you like on. Oh, my slide's again. This isn't a full life-size Godzilla, unfortunately. It's just that top half of it. But Toho, the film production company that owns the rights to Godzilla, have just built a new cinema in Shinjuku, and they've put this Godzilla head on top of it to help promote it. The awesome thing is they've also built a hotel next door, and they actually have Godzilla-themed rooms. So if you want to sleep in a bedroom with Godzilla arm tearing through the wall and about to crush you in your sleep, then you can experience that. So this is a really popular place to go to, the Ghibli Museum, I should say. And this is a really quirky experience. Unfortunately, they don't let you take photos inside, so I find it quite hard to get pictures from inside it. But it's built in a really whimsical style, just like something you'd expect to see in a Ghibli film. And as well as having exhibits based around their films and concept sketches and stuff, they do also feature a number of exhibitions featuring stories from other countries. I think when I went out there, there was like a Russian fairy tale that they had a big exhibit on. They also have a theatre there, which they show special films that you can only see at the Ghibli Museum, and they give you a little film strip from it as a commemorative thing. If you do plan to go here, be warned that you need to book your tickets in advance. I don't think there's an online booking system, but you can go into 7-Eleven convenience stores, and they've got like a computer and you can tap into it. Probably best doing a little bit of research on the net before you go out to find out how to do that. So next we've got this Suganami Animation Museum. This is a really great place to go to if you want to find out about the process of producing animation, and they've also got some hands-on exhibits as well. You can have a go at using a light table to do some sketches. You can have a go at doing some voice recording, and they've also got various kind of animation materials and historical materials. It's also free, which is good. But it's a little bit more out of the way than some of the exhibits, but it's probably worth getting to if you can. This is fairly recently opened, this J-World Tokyo thing. It's basically an indoor theme park for the Shonen Jump series, One Piece, Dragon Ball, and what's the other one? One Piece. Did I say One Piece? Yeah. I meant Naruto. They're all the same to me. And there's various kind of games and activities that you can get involved with there. It is a theme park, even though it's indoors, so it's probably best to get what they call an unlimited pass, because otherwise you have to pay for each individual game that you want to get involved with. So, unlimited pass. This also used to be half of what was another indoor theme park called ANIMEJAPAN, which I'm kind of a little sad because I went to it before they converted it. But you can also go there, and they've got a really awesome ice cream shop that sells almost any flavour of ice cream that you want. Shark ramen, you can have shark ramen. Vampire garlic, you can have vampire garlic. Okay, so I haven't been here. I probably would like to. Sanrio Puroland. So that for those of you who aren't familiar with Sanrio, they're the company that owns Hello Kitty and another number of other cute mascots. So apparently this features rides, attractions, restaurants, and interestingly musicals featuring Hello Kitty and her companions. It's a little bit further out. It's about 45 minutes from the centre of Tokyo, but it doesn't seem too hard to get to. And then finally in Tokyo itself, Toei Animation, the animation studio behind One Piece and Sailor Moon, have a public gallery where you can go in and see some of their materials. At the moment it's closed and it's due to reopen in 2017, But if you can get yourself on a tour group, you may also get to see some behind the scenes of Toei Animation, including animators at work, and have a chat with them. I was able to do that because I went on a tour group back in 2009, and that was really fascinating just to see behind the scenes of that. Okay, so I'm going to do stuff outside of Tokyo now, so it's a bit more kind of dispersed and spread over the place. So the Fuji-Q Highland theme park, it's a little bit like the Alton Towers of Japan. It's got tons of roller coaster rides and stuff like that, but there are also two key Otaku themed attractions here. The first of which is Evangelion World. So continuing on the life-size theme, they've got a life-size Unit 1 and a life-size Unit 2. I don't know if Unit 2 is still there at the moment because of the third Evangelion rebuild film being out. But as well as those, they also have a number of other models of the Evangelions and the characters, kind of scenes that you can stand in and pose with, like Shinji, and smack him around the head or something like that. They've got a cockpit that you can actually get your photo professionally taken in. And they've got a cool shop there as well with stuff that they only sell, because the Japanese seem to love shops that only sell things at that shop. As well as this, there's also a Gundam Crisis attraction, which has recently been updated. So that's got a near life-size Gundam. But the good thing about that is you actually get to explore it as part of a timed treasure hunt. So that sounds pretty fun. Okay, there's another life-size thing, the Tetsujin 28 robot from the early days of manga. That's in the port town of Kobe. And then nearby in Osaka, Universal Studios have a theme park, but it's not just American stuff as well. They've actually got quite a few Otaku attractions. So they've got an Evangelion 4D cinema with a film that you can only see there and be blasted about and blasted with water and that kind of stuff. Attack on Titan. Any fans of Attack on Titan here? Ooh, oh! I was surprised at how quiet it was. They've got an Attack on Titan attraction with life-size Eren Titan and female Titan battling each other. They've got a Titan head that you can sit in the mouth of if you want to look as if you're being eaten. And they've also got waxworks of some of the characters. And that is literally like Madame Two Swords stroke Attack on Titan. I can't imagine it being great, but if you're a fan, then you may want to go see that. Resident Evil, they've got a, what do they call it, escape game. So basically you get locked in an abandoned TV studio for 60 minutes, and you've got to get out of that studio whilst being attacked by zombies. I've got to say, I can't even play the Resident Evil games without being afraid, so I'm not doing that. But if you want to give it a try, feel free. And then finally, they've got some life-size Monster Hunter monsters. But the best thing is they've got life-size feline cats, for those of you who've played the game and know what the feline cats look like. Very cute. So if you're a bit more of a cultural person, you can go to the Kyoto Manga Museum. They have a collection of 300,000 different items, 50,000 of which they have on shelves here. The only downside is, as you can imagine, it's mostly in Japanese. So if you've got a good grasp on the language, then it's brilliant. If you're like me and language is not an easy thing to learn, then it's kind of slightly less there. But they do have some stuff about the history of manga, the manga production process, and they have a very, very, very small foreign language section as well. Then Chibi Maruku-chan Land. I know absolutely nothing about Chibi Maruku-chan Land, but if you know, apparently they have this place where they've got various rooms and places recreated from it, and people walking around with mascots. So if that's your thing, feel free to pop by. As well, if you're a fan of the actual kind of authors and illustrators behind various mangas, and there's quite a few museums dotted around Japan as well dedicated to them. So we've got the Tezuka Osamu Museum, who's probably the most famous name out of all of these. So he was the author behind Atom Boy, Blackjack and Kimber the White Lion in the kind of very early days of manga. Then we've got Goshu Aoyama, who was the artist behind Detective Conan. Fujiko F. Fujio was the artist behind Doraemon. And then finally we've got Shotaro Ishinomori, who's the artist behind Cyborg 009 and Kamen Rider. Okay, so that's attractions done with. So we're going to go through events now. So these only happen at certain times during the year. So if you do want to go to one of these events, then you'll need to look at that exactly when it's happening and plan your trip around it, ideally. So I'm going to start off with the biggest event first, Comiket, short for Comic Market. So that's an absolutely massive event, about 500,000 attendees at each event, and that happens twice a year. So what Comiket is mostly about, it's about doujin goods. So these are individual manga artists or manga circles producing self-published works, either original works or works based on existing anime series and things like that that they really like. And Comiket gives them a platform to which they can sell their works at. In recent years, it's become a lot more well known for its cosplay as well. It was actually really hard to find a photo of cosplayers that didn't have too much flesh in it. So as I said, that happens twice a year, August and December, and that takes place in the Tokyo Big Site in Odaiba, which is quite easy to get from if you're kind of staying centrally in Tokyo. The next up, we've got the Tokyo Game Show. So this is a video games expo where Japanese companies advertise games basically to the Japanese market. They do occasionally have announcements on international releases, but it is much more targeted at the Japanese market. So that's a really big event as well. That's 270,000 attendees. It takes place in September. And that's at the Makuhari Meze, which is a little bit further out than the Tokyo Big Site. But again, it's not too difficult to get to. ANIMEJAPAN. So this kind of evolved from what was formerly the Tokyo International Anime Fair. So this is a gathering of domestic and international companies advertising new anime and promoting themselves. So that's about 120,000 attendees. Happens in March, and there's one that's just gone by recently. And that takes place again in the Tokyo Big Site. Then we've got the ANIMELO Summer Live concert. So this is a concert dedicated to J-pop singers who do a lot of anime songs and anime voice actors and actresses. So I can imagine this is probably a little bit hard to get yourself into, but it does seem like it would be pretty awesome. So that takes place late August in the Saitama Super Arena. Okay, this is my favourite one. I'm a figure collector. Wonder Festival is basically like the Comiket for figure collectors. So it specialises in garage kits. So those are basically doujin figure kits that people produce and sell here in like really small numbers, like 20 to 50 of a certain kit. And it's also used by the mainstream figure companies to advertise new products as well. I've been there, it's awesome. I'd recommend going if you're a figure collector. I felt as happy as that guy in the background looks. So that's twice a year. You've got a choice between February in the freezing cold or July in the heat and humidity. And that takes place in the Makuhari Meze as well. Then moving on to a smaller event, this is the All Japan MOKEI Hobby Show. So if you're into plastic kits of kind of any kind, whether it's Gundam models, military vehicles, trains, anything that can be made in plastic, then it's likely that you'll find them here. So this is about 38,000 attendees. Takes place in September, and that's at the Tokyo big site as well. Then we've got the World Cosplay Summit. So there's kind of two main things to this. First of all, there's the Cosplay Championship, which is a competition that features the winners of preliminary and regional cosplay competitions. So in the UK, Hyper Japan is the associated event. If you want to have a crack at entering, the standards are really high, so you've got to be dedicated. But good luck if you have a go at it. But as well as that, there is also a parade that anybody who comes along can join in and cosplay at. Or you could just go along as a spectator and just go see that. So that draws in about 18,000 attendees, and that's in August as well. And that's actually outside of Tokyo, so that's in the city of Nagoya at the Aichi Arts Centre. And then finishing up the event section, I put in the Sapporo Snow Festival. Now this isn't strictly an Otaku event because they have all kinds of different statues here, but they do tend to do quite a few anime-themed ones, including Snow Miku, who they update the design of every year just so that you can buy new products associated with it. I did have a crack at designing a Snow Miku a few years back. Yeah, I didn't win, and no chance at that. But yeah, 2.5 million attendees. It's pretty crazy. So that takes in place early February, and that's up north on the island of Hokkaido in their basically capital city, Sapporo. So that's a lot more effort to get to than some of the other events that we've seen. Okay, moving on to pilgrimages. So for those of you who are wondering why I've put in the word pilgrimages, basically this is where fans of a particular series go to places that are featured in animes, and quite often they try and get exact matches for scenes in anime, and then they've got a photo to put side by side and say, I was here, kind of thing. So again, I'm going to go through stuff in Tokyo first, and it's also a really good way of introducing you to some of the other kind of places in Tokyo as well that you can visit. So first up, we've got Shibuya, kind of the home of mainstream fashion in Tokyo, and famous for its crossing as well, one of the busiest in the world. So the anime stroke visual novel series Chaos Head was heavily featured here. As I don't know if you can see, but quite often they tend to kind of not quite make the details exactly the same. So Shibuya 109 has become Shibuya 107, -2. And for those of you who don't know Chaos Head, it kind of precedes things like Steins Gate, Robotics Notes, anything that's got a semicolon in the middle of it. Okay, so whereas Shibuya is mainstream fashion, Harajuku is the home of alternative fashion. And that makes it a really good location for things like Paradise Kiss, kind of an alternative fashion anime by the same author that did the Nana series. And we'll come on to Nana in a couple of slides. Akihabara. I'm hoping most of you will be familiar with Akihabara already. If not, we'll cover a bit more on it in this shopping section. But it tends to be a popular place with series that are kind of self-reflective on the otaku scene. So, Ora no Imoto, Kira goes to Akihabara, and she's excited. You'd be excited if you were there too. And Steins Gate, some of it was set there as well. Ironically, or not ironically, for a while, Akihabara actually had part of the Radio Kaiken building with a crashed UFO in it, recreating the crashed UFO scenes from Steins Gate. Unfortunately, the building's been knocked down and rebuilt, which is sad because it had some awesome shops in it. So next up is Odaiba. So these are kind of a series of man-made islands in Tokyo Bay. This is where the Tokyo Big Site is. So again, fairly self-reflective otaku series such as Genshiken are set here. And it's also the starting location for Tokyo Magnitude 8.0, but hopefully nothing like that happens when you're out there. I hear a few yays there. I think people like Durarara. I don't know if I got the amount of grass right on that one. But whereas Durarara is based on the chaos that ensues between like the worst people, the most dangerous people in Ikebukuro, actually it's not that bad. It's a bit more energetic than some regions of Tokyo, a bit more down to earth, but it is home to places like Sunshine City, which is where J-World theme park was, where Namja Town is, and a few other places that we'll come on to in the shopping section. And then finally, finishing up in Tokyo, it might have been surpassed in terms of height by the Tokyo Skytree, but the Tokyo Tower still remains pretty iconic. And there's been loads of animes that have featured fight scenes, battle scenes around Tokyo Tower, including Sailor Moon. Even in the new series that they're airing at the moment, they've still kept true and have the Tokyo Tower in there. So we're going to go outside of Tokyo now. So we've got the Washinomiya Shrine, and this is kind of what was responsible for starting the whole idea about otaku pilgrimages in the first place. It's where the Hiragi sisters in Lucky Star work as shrine maidens, and all the way back in 2007, New Type magazine, which is a really popular anime magazine in Japan, featured an article on real life locations. Basically, the moment they did that, the moment that hit the public, this shrine was swamped by otaku. Even cosplayers were there recreating scenes. And although I think things are a bit tamer these days, it still retains those otaku associations, and they still hold various events there during the year. So we've got the Chofu Fireworks Festival, which takes place in about July, August, but they never seem to fix the date until just beforehand. They let off 10,000 fireworks in a row, which is pretty amazing. And it plays a pivotal kind of location in the series Nana as well. It's not too hard to get to from Tokyo. The only thing I would warn you is it gets busy. We went there because we followed some people in kimonos and we thought, oh, they're going to a Matsuri, I wonder where they're going. And just literally followed them on a train. Which sounds a little bit freaky, but we were looking for a Matsuri to go to anyway, so it makes sense. But yeah, there were tens of thousands of people. We were queuing for hours for that. That was crazy. So we've got the region of Hakone, which is really popular with Japanese tourists because, again, it's quite easy to get to from Tokyo. It's really scenic. It's famous for its hot springs, and it also neighbours Mount Fuji, which is really iconic. It's also the home for lots and lots and lots of locations in the Evangelion series. And what you can do is, in Japan, you can pick up what's called a instrumentality map. So you can find this in tourist offices in the area, and it basically gives you sample trails for exploring the area and giving you scenes from Evangelion that you can compare it against. There's also now a augmented reality app where you can hold your camera up and then suddenly there's an Evangelion jumping over you, but there isn't. I haven't tried that, but that seems to be a fairly new thing that you can try. So I'm a bit gutted because there's a slight tech fail here, so I really would have liked you to see the island behind all that anime. But basically, the island of Anishima and the seaside town of Kamakura are obviously easy to get to from Tokyo. It's a really nice place to visit, even if you're not into anime, because it's by the seaside, it's much more laid back, the air's fresh. Then you've got the island of Anishima itself, which is really scenic, lots of shrines to go visit on there. But it's also a really popular place for anime to be set in. So things like Suritama, which I cannot even begin to try and explain to you, Ika Mizume, Squid Girl, and then the much more serious Elfen Lied. Its pivotal end battle type thing is set on the bridge between the mainland and the island. So that's quite a good place to go and recreate that. I mean, don't recreate it. Don't actually batter people. So next up, I've put down Kansai. Kansai is actually a region of Japan. It's kind of unofficial, but basically it's in the kind of the mid-south of it. And it's a little bit like the Midlands of Japan. It's home to a number of cities. It's home to Osaka, Kyoto, Nara, and Kobe. And it's a lot more down to earth than Tokyo, a bit more laid back, a bit more old-fashioned as well. But it's home to a number of anime series. So we've got the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, Kanon and K-On! For those of you who are familiar with these series, you've probably noticed the connection between them, that they're all by the same animation studio, which is Kyoto Animation, which is right in the middle of the Kansai region. So it's kind of fitting that they've chosen to set all their shows in the same region that they work in. And continuing the Kyoto Animation theme, the neighbouring prefecture of Tottori is home to another couple of series. So it's home to Air and also to Free, which is actually a good series. I actually enjoy that. And then finally finishing up the pilgrimage section, we've got the historical village of Shirakawa, and I'd really love to be able to visit this just because it looks so beautiful. And it's also the basis for the town of Hinamizawa, the setting of the infamous, yet brilliant in my opinion, lolly horror, Higurashi no Naku Korone, which does have an amazing story. Stick with it for the first season, stick with it for the second season, and it all makes sense. Maybe. Right, finally, shopping, so this is the last kind of category that we're going to go through. So let me tell you this straight, there is no substitute for shopping in Japan. Shopping online is not the same, going to the Bring and Buy, going to the Dealers Room is not the same. It's just so incredibly amazing, and I can't even begin to tell you through slides how amazing it is. So you can guess what's probably going to come up first if you're even slightly familiar with Japan. Akihabara. So that is the kind of the absolute mecca for otaku. It's a shopping district in Tokyo, and there's tons and tons and tons of shops selling anime goods, manga goods, games, hobby stuff, pretty much anything you want, you can probably find it there. And let me warn you, you can spend a whole day here and not see everything. So it's probably best to leave that day, if you can spend a whole day, for the last day of your holiday, just because you may end up buying so much stuff that you wouldn't be able to cope with it otherwise. So next up we've got the Nakano Broadway, which is kind of, the limelight's kind of been taken off this a bit by the proliferation of shops in Akihabara. But it still remains a really good place to go to find older and rarer things. So basically what Nakano Broadway is a shopping arcade, but the second floor upwards of it, there's loads of anime shops selling second-hand goods and stuff. It's home to Mandarake, which if you've been to the figure panel and if you've been to the anime sale panel, you've probably heard tons of already. But it is a really awesome place to go visit and find second-hand stuff to shop at. And there's also other independent stores there that you can go to. Ikebukuro. Ikebukuro's got a road in it that's become nicknamed Otome Road. So there's a lot of shops there that specialise in doujin and goods for women, particularly for Joshi, if you're familiar with the term. Fans of yaoi, maybe that's a bit too generalistic. It's also now home to the Evangelion official store, which was formerly in Harajuku, but it's moved there now. There we go. A couple of shots. Really hard to get really good photos from there. There's a couple of other places that you can go to, much smaller places. So in Shibuya, there's a very, very subterranean branch of Mandaraka. It's literally like 4 floors down from ground level, and it feels like you're going to go to the centre, journey on to the centre of the earth. Shinjuku, there's a couple of small anime shops here, but it's mostly likely that you'll want to spend all your money at the games arcades there, which are really fun. And then finally, Ueno, there's a really cool toy shop in Ueno called Yamashiroya. That's on a number of floors, and they just have tons of both kind of anime-themed and non-anime-themed toys, cuddlies, plushies, those kind of things. So if you can spend a bit longer in Japan and you're doing a bit of exploring, there's a few other places that you can go to. The next biggest place to Tokyo is Osaka, and they've got what's called Denden Town, which is basically their equivalent of Akihabara. And if you're passing by that area, definitely worth a visit. There's also kind of clusters of shops in Nagoya, and then on the northern island of Hokkaido, up in Sapporo, and then on the southern island of Kyushu, Fukuoka. Great thing about these places is that it's often easier to find older things, and it's easier to find things cheaper as well, just because there's so many people in Tokyo that it pushes the price of things up. So I'm going to run you through a few kind of different stores now, just to give you an idea of what they are and what might pique your interest. So first up we've got Gamers. That's pretty much a department store for Otaku. So if you want to buy something new or something from a really popular series, then it's likely that they'll probably have that in stock. Then we've got Terano Ana, which specialises in manga and doujin goods. If you go up too many floors, then you might need sunglasses on, because there's some pretty shocking sights. Softmat's primarily an electronics dealer, but they do have some branches that specialise in more anime-themed things. And for those of you who are figure collectors, you might recognise the name of Kotobukiya as a figure manufacturer. But they do also have a store in Akihabara, where you can go and buy their figures, and also lots of other collectibles from other manufacturers as well. Oh, there we go. So next up we've got Volks. So for those of you who are Dolphy Dream BJD collectors, you might recognise their name as the manufacturer of some of those. They also have a number of hobby shops in Japan, dotted in various locations. And they don't just sell doll stuff, they sell collectibles, they sell model kits, model supplies, so a really kind of wide range of things. Then we've got Animate. They're a bit like Gamers, they're a department store as well, and there's quite a few branches of those. Then we've got Asabit City, which I'm not really familiar with, but apparently they sell lots of different things, and the store's quite compact, so if you haven't got much time in Tokyo, then it might be worth just popping by Akihabara, popping in there, get a flavour of the things that you could buy. And then finally, Yodobashi Camera. It's like the PC World of Japan, but only much, much, much better. Their flagship store is in Akihabara, and it's absolutely massive. There's tons of floors, and they sell all kinds of things, but they've got a really awesome toy section, and hobby sections and game sections. Each of those sections is probably the size of your average PC World. So all those kind of stores sold mainly new stuff. So I'm going to go through some stores now that sell second-hand stuff, which is a good way of finding older figures, getting figures for cheaper, or just stuff that's really rare and hard to get. So I've said about it already, Mandaraka, it's awesome, go there. And we've got Jungle, which is kind of a much smaller chain of shops, but they specialise in selling figures. And they've got some quite reasonable prices, so it's worth checking them out. You'll have noticed that I've put Volks on the list again. That's because they also have a number of what are called rental cabinets in their shop that sell second-hand things. But I'll cover what those are in a little bit more detail after I finish going through all the second-hand shops. So we've got Hobby Off, which is much more kind of mainstream kind of brand of shops. And I'd originally been put off by kind of reviews on the internet, but on the last trip, we went to a couple of them, and actually they are really good places to go for games collectibles, anime collectibles, and the like. So I do recommend checking them out. Then we've got Lash and Bang, which is a fairly new name. They've got a number of stores and slowly growing. And again, they specialise in figures. And I'm finishing these stores up with my absolute favourite, the Liberty chain of stores. So they're kind of much harder to find than some of the other stores that I featured. But they've got one store in particular, the Figure Hobby, if you can read Japanese, that is awesome. It's right in the northern fringe of Akihabara, so it's a little bit of a walk, but it's definitely worth going there because they've got loads of figures at really good prices, loads of variety. So that's the shops finished. So I'm just going to quickly take you through a couple of concepts buying second-hand stuff in Japan for the uninitiated. So you can just buy some second-hand stuff just off the shelf, literally pick up a box, take it to the cashier, pay for it. But there's also a couple of things which might throw you off if you're not familiar with them. So first up, on the left-hand side, we've got what are called showcases. So these are cabinets which tend to have very rare, very expensive figures in them. And what you can't do is you can't open them and take them out. They lock them. So there's a couple of different systems that different stores employ. Some stores have little paper tags on the cabinets that you pick up and you take to a cashier. And then they'll escort you to the cabinet and you point out what you want. Sometimes they have a numbering system where you can write down on the slip of paper. And sometimes they don't have any of that. So if they don't have any of that, find a cashier or find an attendant and say to them, "Showcase onegaishimasu." They'll work out enough from that really ropey Japanese that you want them to go to a showcase and that you want something from it. So in the top right-hand corner, we've got something similar, the rental cabinet. So it looks similar to a showcase, but what you'll find is that these are like really, really small compartments. And as the rental name kind of suggests, these are actually rented out to individual sellers. So somebody will pay to rent it out for a month and they just put whatever they like in it for whatever price they like. So you can find tons of stuff in them. Be wary of them because some sellers like to buy stuff and then sell it immediately afterwards for twice the price. Be a bit savvy, look around a bit, try and get a feel for what the actual value of something that you want is before making a decision. But don't wait too long because these shops get pretty busy, and if it's something really awesome, there's probably somebody else out there who thinks it's awesome as well. And then finally, we've got on the bottom right, the figures in clear plastic bags. So these are either trading figures that didn't really have proper boxes, or they're figures that have been taken out their packaging and the packaging's no longer with them. It's a really great way to start a collection if you don't already collect figures and collectibles. One word of warning, you probably can't make it out very well, but they're all in like little white packets, but there's one white packet that has some Japanese written on it. That's probably a display item. Don't pick that up and take it to the cashier like I have done, because they'll immediately walk back and pick one out for you, and then you're just standing there thinking, "Oh, I feel so guilty that I've caused you more effort than is necessary." But that's pretty much as much as you need to know for second-hand shopping to actually buy stuff. So that's all. Thank you very much for listening through all that. It felt like a bit of a marathon. But if you do want to know more about visiting Japan in general, then I recommend a few key resources. Japan Guide is a brilliant website, planning holidays, finding out about the various regions of Japan. Hyperdia is a website where you can plan train travel and transport in Japan. Japan has an absolutely fantastic rail network, and you can probably get to most of the places that I've featured on a train, so that's a really useful resource. And there's also a Japan Rail Pass that you can get, where you can get free travel on most trains in Japan for like a week or 2 weeks. So that's a really good thing to do. If you want to book your own hotels, Agoda is a really useful website, makes it really easy to search for your Japanese hotels. And then finally, for Otaku themed information, attractions, events, and news, Tokyo Otaku mode seems to be really good these days for that kind of thing. So, thank you very much again. Sorry. If you weren't able to see the slides very well, I know because I was sitting in the back for a previous presentation, I am going to put these online on my website. I'll link to it from the Amecon forums so that you can go through and click through. And what I've also done is added tons and tons and tons of hyperlinks to the end of the presentation. So pretty much anything that you've seen in here will have a hyperlink that you can click through to find out more information on it. So, how are we doing? 12:15, so yeah, we're running on time. So I'll throw it open to the floor for questions, if you like. So,
do you have a guide for kind of what times of year it's good to go? When it's not going to be boiling or sweltering or brown?
Yeah, the most popular time for most people is March, April, mainly because of the cherry blossom season out there, so it's really beautiful and scenic out there, and it was also kind of on that upwards curve, so it's getting warmer but it's not too warm, and inversely at the other end of the year, October is a really good time to go. It kind of seems a bit of a weird time in the UK, but in Japan it's just as their summer's trailing off, so it's a little bit like our summer out there, so that's another really good time to go. I'd probably avoid going in June because that's kind of monsoon season, heavy rain, and probably December because they get a lot of snowfall kind of in the winter months, and that might make travelling around a little bit more tricky.
When there's national holidays and things in Japan, do tourist attractions like castles and the temples close, or are they open for visitors?
I don't know off the top of my head. I would suspect that they probably do for some like the things like Golden Week, where people have free time to go out and enjoy such things. Other events like New Year's might not, so you probably want to do your research. Word of warning, Japanese move around the country a lot during their holidays, so you might not want to be out there whilst they're moving around because that's going to make travel really difficult, like travelling on the bullet train, the Shinkansen. Seats tend to be reserved well in advance for that period of time. Yep.
You mentioned briefly about going as part of a guided tour. I was wondering if you could tell me what you thought about what that experience was like.
Yeah, that's a really good thing. So I went on a guided tour in 2008, and that was my very first time going to Japan, and again in 2009 because I enjoyed it so much the first time round. And that was with a company called Japan Journeys. So that was for 5 days, which sounds like not a lot of time considering that you've basically got a day flying out there and a day flying back. But because you're part of that guided tour and you've got somebody showing you around, they do cram in a lot of stuff, but it is a really, really good way of getting a feel for Japan, because it can be a little bit overwhelming if you go out there just on your own with no prior experience. They do have tons of signs in English and it's not too hard to get around, but I certainly found going as part of a tour group a really useful experience. And just meeting new people, like-minded people. As I said, I met my wife out on one of those tour groups. So it is a great experience. At the back?
Just to add to the temple thing, so if you think of going to a temple or a castle or anything like that, definitely research it because they do close on certain days of the week. And some of them have really specific requirements, like you have to take your passport with you. So it's certainly worth checking out online before you visit any big attraction like that.
Yeah, some good advice there. It is really handy that a lot of places, a lot of popular places anyway, there is quite a lot of information online, and hopefully things like Japan Guide should point you in the right direction towards that kind of thing. Yep.
With regards to money in Japan, I've heard they're not quite as big on credit cards as we are in Europe.
Ah,
so
yes.
Do you need to take big bundles of cash everywhere? Or?
You're absolutely correct. It's not impossible to get money out in Japan, but it is quite difficult. And it's also really, really, really difficult to actually pay for things on a credit card. So if you go into a shop in Akihabara and show them a credit card, they'll look really confused. So I definitely recommend working out what your budget is, taking that money out with you as cash, and just keeping it secure, keep it in like a hidden wallet or something.
You did need more when you're out there. You could get it, but it wouldn't be every street corner.
No. I think 7-Eleven convenience stores have that little electronic kiosk thing, which I've been told you can use. And I think also some branches of Citibank you can use, but I haven't had very good experiences.
Right.
I've probably pressed the wrong buttons. Yeah.
I'd just like to add that if you're trying to use a credit card while you're there, 7-Elevens will accept it. Nowhere else will, really. We actually went to a bank and they didn't accept it there either. So it's on cards, essentially. And also the security museum, that's where you buy the tickets. You buy them at 7-Eleven. But if you say Ghibli, they won't understand what you're saying. You have to pronounce it Ghibli.
Yeah.
As we learned from experience at that point.
Yeah, really good points there. I'm quite lucky because every time that I've been, they've been bought for me, so I haven't had to go through that. But yeah, some really good advice there. Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, excellent. I'm assuming you're a happy bunch. But if you do think of any questions or you want to have a chat and get any more advice about going to Japan, feel free to flag me down at any point, say hello and ask away. So again, thank you very much. You're free to go, by the way.